This is Nourish You, the podcast where we question the traditional model of dieting and nutrition and focus on choice, fun, and health for the whole mind and body. It's all on the table and it all counts. I'm Jana Maurer, Rush Your Dietitian, and your host. Today, I'm so excited. I have Janie J, author of Live Your Best Life series for women 50 and older, with me today. And I'm so excited because Janie has just an amazing story to share. And so we're going to dive right into it. Janie, thank you so much for being willing to take some time and share your story and your information with the audience today.
Thank you, Jana, for the opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm looking for.
Yeah, me too. We're just going to dive in. I know that there's so many different things that we can talk about, but let's start with, sharing your story. So who are you and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, I'm an author, speaker, world traveler, nationally ranked athlete, and I consider myself an encourager of women. So my story started about 6.5, 7 years ago when I was 60 years old. My then husband suddenly left, and we'd been married 35 years. So I would say I was in crisis mode. I had just finished a few years before finally building my dream home, because he had been in the military. So we traveled around and never really had what I felt like was the home that I wanted. So I finally had my home in the country, and he left, and he hadn't been working. So we were in debt big time, like 70 grand. And it just seemed insurmountable. And I was working 3 jobs, and he walked out, and I'm like, how am I going to stay afloat? I mean, I knew that he had some issues and that I couldn't help him, but, because I felt like I'd already done whatever I could, working 3 jobs, maintaining the house and doing all the work and everything. It wasn't going to be sustainable. And I was like so worried, like, how am I going to survive? And I knew for sure that I did not want to live the rest of my life like that, because I was working so hard and I was not enjoying life. And I thought, there's got to be more than this. And whatever it is, I'm going to figure it out. Like, I was so determined. And besides being depressed, and I had recently started a new job as a real estate broker, which for people that don't know, that means it's commission, and you might work your butt off and not make any money. So it was kind of scary, and I didn't know what was going to happen with the finances. And I mean, in his condition, it wasn't like I was going to get alimony or anything. So it was like, how am I going to figure this out? So I spent a lot of time in reflection. And I started, I guess it was like meditating, but I didn't really know anything about meditating. But basically, I just learned how to sit still, which was totally unknown to me. Like, I was a total workaholic. So just to sit and be quiet and not be doing was like so weird. But I learned how to do it. And I'm thinking that in those first several months, I was probably so depressed and frozen with fear and uncertainty that I had to sit and be quiet and think about things for like sometimes up to an hour or 2 hours in the morning before I could go and be around people, because I could tell I had so much angst and worry, and that's not going to help you very much in sales. So or even in leasing, which is primarily what I did. So I spent a lot of time doing that and thinking, well, what is it I need to learn and stuff like that. And I read a lot of books and listened to a lot of podcasts. And, I was already not watching TV because that really upset me. I spent more and more time outside. And through that journey, I learned what to do and what would basically fix my life. And my first book, this one, Live the Life You Have Imagined, is basically all about the steps necessary to get you on track to living your best life. And so I put it to use, and that's how I kind of turn things around.
Yeah, I feel like you've said so many like key things as far as like, especially if, I feel like for women more so, is this idea of when we have like a very traumatic event happen, oftentimes we feel like the answer is to do more to fix it as quickly as possible. And it sounds like that really, I mean, you were already doing all that you could, and it sounds like a lot of the like knowledge that you gained during this process came from that opportunity you gave yourself to be still and to really get, you know, clear with your own thoughts. How like
That's exactly right.
yeah, how did you make that happen? Because that is not easy.
Well, I figured out what I'd been doing. It wasn't working. So it wasn't working. So why keep doing it? Like, working one job wasn't enough. Working two jobs wasn't enough. Then I'd work three jobs. And it was like, it was like, well, getting another job, like, or doing more wasn't going to work. So when I finally slowed down, I realized that it's counterintuitive, but doing less, you can accomplish more. Because if you're more rested and clear-headed and you're happier, it seems things happen better. Like everything flows better. So I found that to be true. But I just had to say, that I've been doing method A and it doesn't work. And turning it up and making it more and more and more, it's not getting any better. In fact, it's getting worse. So just stopping. I just had to make myself do it because it was like, this isn't working. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And then stopping and thinking about things was a lot better for me.
In that time of self-reflection, what do you think was one of the like big aha moments that you had for yourself during that time that you feel like has, you know, kept you on this road of success?
Well, the thing that I found that was the most imperative is spending time on myself, because I'm in my mid 60s now, or I guess I should say late 60s, or to wrap my head around that. But when so I grew up in the 50s, and it was pretty well ingrained in women that you got married and you took care of your kids and your husband, and even if you worked outside of the home, taking care of everyone and everything else was your responsibility. So I grew up thinking that was how it was supposed to be. And honestly, I loved having a family and I loved having a home. And I'm one of the people that like to work outside the home, but there was no time left for me. And so like I remember when my kids were at home and my former husband was there and I was working, I remember getting literally 1 hour a week to do what I wanted. And that was on Sunday night at 10 o'clock, that's too late and it should have been in bed already. I'm going to get up at 6. But I would watch 1 hour of TV. And then to date myself, I was watching like Dallas or Dynasty, some of those kind of shows. And the only reason I got to do that was, number one, I finally had the TV because it was monopolized the rest of the time. And number two, I was totally exhausted and I couldn't physically, mentally do one more thing. Like I couldn't go pay bills, or I couldn't do anything. I was too tired, and that was Sunday night. So that's how I started my week. And but being brought up like that, I thought that's what I was supposed to do. But what I've realized since, and I wish I would have known it like when I was in my 30s and 40s, when I was raising a family, is that you really honestly have to take care of yourself first. You cannot be your best wife, mom, or employee, or even boss, if you have your own business, if you don't take care of yourself. It literally is like what they tell you when you're on the airplane and they say, put your mask on first. And people go, well, I got to put it on my kid first. No, you need to because you can't take care of them if you can't take care of yourself. And I wish that I would have spent more me time, it never even dawned on me in those years, child raising years, it never dawned on me that I could take a couple of hours off on a Saturday and go to the movie with girlfriends. Like I wouldn't even, like that wasn't even in the realm of possibilities. It was more like, how am I going to get both kids to soccer and still figure out how to clean the house and do the grocery shopping? Like, and like, how am I going to get all this done? And it's really different. If you take care of yourself first, you have more energy for the other stuff. So I found that really the key that changed everything, even though like when I had my low point, I was alone, the kids were gone and my former husband was gone, but I was still not focusing on myself. I was like focusing on work and how am I going to handle this? But once I sat down and spent the time on me and just like took a deep breath and tried to figure this out and said, the other can wait, I've got to figure this out, then that was the start of it. And then of course I learned about self-care. I didn't know anything about it. Like, you mean you can go and pamper yourself? Like, wow, this is cool. So now I'm really into that. And so I spend a lot more time doing things that make me happy and bring me joy than worrying so much about work.
Yeah.
But,
Like internally, like the dialogue in your head, when you were in your 30s and 40s and raising a family and taking care of everything, what was the internal dialogue that was going on if you would have taken care of yourself during that time?
Well, I don't even think I stopped to think about the internal dialogue. It was more like, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, and I don't know how I'm going to get that done. And it was basically like just telling myself I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. And of course, that probably just made it worse. Like, it made me feel with more angst. And, I can remember times where I was probably, well, no doubt, short with the kids and snapping at them, but they don't realize all the worries I had and all the other things I had to do. But if you have the time to spend on yourself and you're calmer, you won't lash out like that. You can respond kinder instead of saying, I told you to pick up your stuff. You can say, oh, how about helping pick up your stuff? Like, you could say the same thing, but I could have been a lot nicer. I could have been a lot kinder. But I think my self-talk was all, filled with worry and angst. It's really important. So like now I don't talk, first of all, I think that we have to come to a point where we realize that we do self-talk. Like when I was younger, I had no clue. Like, it was happening, I just wasn't aware of it. But now I'm aware of it. And if you're aware of it, then you can start to change that dialogue. So now I think I do things, and like, let's say in the morning, I'm going to take a Pilates class. Then I say, oh, I get to take Pilates this morning. Or it's not, oh gosh, I've got to get up and do that. It's like, no, I get to do it. And, oh, I get to edit a book, or I get to go pay bills or something, or I get to go do errands, or I get to go for a 4-mile run. Like, it's all how you frame it.
Yeah.
And if you tell yourself that kind of stuff enough, you'll start believing it. And then it just changes your whole mood.
Yeah.
It changes your whole experience.
I heard someone say that you go in the direction of your most powerful thoughts. And I thought, wow, one, like, you have to be aware of your thoughts, like you said. And then two, like, we literally are going in the direction of the things that we are thinking about constantly. So like, right, you mentioned, like, if you were thinking about the overwhelm of all the pressure that you had on your shoulders and the anxiety and all these other things, we just continue to go and spiral in that direction. So
right, you just dig a bigger hole.
Right, exactly. So if we can like interject in some way of just like, it sounds like even affirmations, of those positive affirmations, we can really, start changing that cycle to at least start focusing on some other things versus those things that really are keeping us in that loop and keeping us feeling like we're stuck and we are not in control and that everything is happening to us.
Right. We all get stuck in that negative loop. So once you recognize that it's feeding off whatever conscious or subconscious stuff you're telling yourself, then you can start to fix it. And a lot of people talk about affirmations, and I have a confession to make. I don't do it so much anymore because I don't feel like it's necessary. But I have like a bunch of index cards, those little cards. And I would just write stuff, like if I saw it online or I thought of it myself, I would just write it, and I would put them in the bathroom. And I would just read them and read them and read them until it was finally just part of my brain. So I think that really helped me to look at things more positively and think I can do things instead of, and put everything with a more positive spin. Because it's not like I grew up somewhere where people were encouraging me or giving me a lot of kudos for, like that was pretty unknown in my family life. And I certainly didn't get it when I was a mom or a wife. So I had to do it myself, and I found it helpful. Some people say, well, it doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work if you don't believe it, but I believed it. I just needed some reinforcement. And I think even the people that struggle with it, if they say it enough, I think some of it's going to stick. But after a while, it helps you to believe that you are limitless and that you can do anything you want, which I believe is true. So, I mean, for instance, now who would have thought that somebody who's 60 years old, gets a divorce, is broke, worried about finances, doing a new job on commission, who would have thought that they could lose 35 pounds, go from extra large to a medium, and learn to jog or go to a boot camp, start jogging, and join a master's level track team, and practice for a couple of years. I'm talking going from walking and jogging to running on a track team, to compete nationally and get in the top 10 in 2 events. That's so like, well, if I could do that, not that I want to keep doing it, but if I could do that, I could do anything, because I never ran track in high school or anything like that. So if you stretch out there and do something really bold like that, then it doesn't seem so overwhelming. And so like now I've written 4 books. The last one was an international bestseller. I was part of a compilation book. And then one of the books in my series was Amazon #1 when it was released. So, I'm making a lot of progress, and, there's a lot of people that say, oh, I want to write a book, and they never even do it. So now I feel confident, that I could do that. I have to have a lot more books coming out. So
I think
trying to work on that.
Yeah, I think that that's probably one of my favorite parts of your story, Janie, is that you really are redefining this idea of ageism too. Like so often I hear, especially from women, like, oh, I'm turning 40, it's all going downhill, or oh, I'm turning 50, like everything's stopping basically. And I'm like, if you allow it to, like you still are a human, and you still have a body, you still have worth and value and ability to contribute. It's all within that like frame of mind. And I think your story shares that so powerfully, that it doesn't matter what age, it doesn't matter like what gender, because I feel like we see it a little bit more in just women of how we've been groomed to think as well. And you completely just, blow that out of the water and say, actually, no, you can't, with the power of belief and faith in yourself, you can really do whatever you want to do.
Right. I really believe that it's never too late to start living your best life. I mean, until you take literally your last breath here on earth, you can still strive to have a better life. And actually, I was kind of surprised. There's apparently a lot of women that are divorced, especially later in life, like in their 60s. And they just are like, well, it's the end of my life. I'm not married, so now I can't be happy. And I try to convince them, well, you can be happy, and it's up to you, and you don't need a man to be happy. Yeah, sure, you might want one, but you don't have to have one to be healthy. You don't have to have one to be active. And you can still go places and do things. I mean, like, I remember when I was first single again or divorced, I'd go to the coast by myself, and then I'd go out to eat at a really nice restaurant. And it was kind of made me mad. The young hostess would be like in her 20s, and she'd say, oh, is it one? And I go, yes. And then they'd seat you, and then the waitress would come up and say, well, is anybody joining you? And finally I just said, look, single people need to eat too. and also, if you wait for a guy, you might be waiting an awful long time.
Yeah.
And I've traveled a lot on my own for in the States and also to Europe by myself, which was pretty scary the first time. I mean, I remember the first time I drove to San Francisco, it's about 3 or 4 hours away from where I live. And I was really scared, like, because I don't like driving in traffic and all that. And of course, I made it to San Francisco and I got to the valet parking and got out. And I didn't drive again until I got ready to come home. Like, I just took Uber around town. But, eventually I just kept, expanding my comfort zone and going a little further away, a little bolder trip, and, flying to other states and renting cars and driving around. And if I get lost, so I get lost. Eventually I'll figure out where I am. I just don't worry about it. But in 2019, I went to Pula, Croatia for a month by myself. And that was like, I was scared, but I thought, well, I'm just going to do this because I really wanted there was an event there and I really wanted to go to it. But it shows that you can do anything. You just keep pushing yourself and you don't need a guy. I think about all the stuff that I would have missed out on the last 6 years if I waited for a guy. Like, I've been to the coast a few times. I've been to North and South Carolina. I have been to Wyoming twice to go to a dude ranch. And I mean, I've done more in those 6 years than I did in the 35 years when I was married, because I had a hard time getting my former husband to go anywhere. I mean, we lived overseas, so part of the time I could go places on my own. But it's actually a lot more freeing to be single and not have to worry about coordinating it with somebody else's schedule and their likes. I remember times where going to the coast and, like, if I would have had somebody with me, it would have been, well, I don't want to go hit golf balls. Well, I don't want to go walk on the beach. I don't want to go do this or that, or I don't want to eat at an expensive restaurant. But, when you're by yourself, you can do whatever the heck you want. It's really freeing. And I would say to women, don't be afraid, because, you can figure out a way to pay for it. I mean, like, I was broke and I still went to Europe like 4 times. And that sounds ridiculous to most people, but you have to be very inventive. Like, I went with family members who had air miles and places to stay, and also went on quick trips with other friends. So the other thing is, like, when I decided to go to Croatia, it was kind of expensive because it was an event and I had to pay for the event and registration plus the flight and plus staying like at an Airbnb for a month. And so I figured out how to pay for it by selling my tractor and stuff like that. So it was like, okay, I could do it. And then I found out it was going to cost a little bit more. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm still going to go. I've done all this work to get ready to go, but I still need some more money. And then, like, within a few days or a week, I got a rebate check from Costco for that amount. So what you have to do is figure out what you want and the money will come. So people that use money as an excuse, it's not really an excuse. You're just kind of afraid, or don't want to really set your intentions. Because you can really, honestly, you can have, be, or do anything you want. It's all a matter of, like, how much do you want it, and are you willing to do what it takes?
Yeah. What compels you to keep going? Because a lot of what you share are very courageous acts that, frankly, like, are very scary. So when we have like that fear and we might be scared, or we really have to tap into that courage that is, it's not that the fear is not there or that's gone, we are managing it. It sounds like you've been really able to, push that aside to say, like, no, this is what I'm doing. How did you get to that place, and how do you continue to stay in that space?
Well, one thing I figured out, and this took me a long time, is one thing, we all worry about what other people think about us. But honestly, they're not paying that much attention. So Yeah, I remember I was married when I first got out of college in my 20s. I was married for a year, and I remember being heartbroken that I got a divorce, and being embarrassed and all that. And my mom told me at the time, she said, "Don't worry about it. In a week, it'll be old news." And that was, before Facebook and all that and social media. And I thought it was like going to be a scar forever. But nobody really noticed. After a week, if people at work were talking about different stuff. It wasn't. I mean, it was like it happened so long ago. And it's like that now, even with social media. People have a short attention span, and they are not focused on you. They are focused on them. And so that really helps. But for me personally now, life is good. So I focus on that. And I think of ways to be happy and have fun on a regular basis. And I think what really lights my fire now, because I switched from real estate to writing and publishing my books. But what's happened now is I'm working on my next mission. And so that's really got me excited and jazzed up. And so like I wake up early and I can't wait to go do that. And it's, I think it's knowing internally why you're here and what you're supposed to be doing. And that just kind of is a fire in me. I think other people, maybe they need to spend time figuring out why they're here and what they're supposed to be contributing. Because I think everybody has worth, everybody has value, and it's not up to us to decide how much, what they're worth and whether or not it's important. But it is a duty that each of us has to figure out why we're here in our mission and how we're going to make our contribution. And the contribution could be something like raising your family. It could be something work related. It can be a whole bunch of different things. It doesn't have to be, Pulitzer Prize winning stuff.
Right.
I mean, not everybody can get that, right?
Yeah.
But I think if you try to tap into that or figure it out or feel good about whatever contribution you're making, that'll help fuel your, wanting to continue and be excited about it. Because I think if you don't have anything exciting going on, then it's like, well, why get up in the morning?
Right.
If you don't have a job that you like, or a family situation, or a volunteer activity, or something that you're really passionate about, it's like life's kind of boring.
Yeah.
And
I think it's so interesting because the more as you turn inward to really figure that out for yourself, it allows you to look at the bigger picture and be able to serve so many more people. And I'm not saying that the reason why you take care of yourself is to be able to serve more, but I just find it interesting is that, at least from how I took in information, I oftentimes thought that if I was to tune into my own needs, one, that was selfish, and two, I was neglecting everyone else. And the more that I've actually been able to take care of myself, the more I want to be able to serve others because I feel good.
right.
And I think that that's so interesting of how that happens.
Well, you can't help others if you're unhappy and in turmoil yourself. Because honestly, who wants to be around you? And I don't mean you personally. I just mean people in general. Like if you're struggling and you can't figure out how to put a smile on your face, like all you're going to be around is other people that are not so happy.
Yeah.
But if you can figure out your own self and what makes you happy and what brings you joy, and then you can start being in a position to help other people. And what happens is people pick up on that you're like that, and they will be attracted to you, and they'll be saying, well, how did you do that? Like when I first lost weight, I would see people that I hadn't seen in a couple of years, and they literally wouldn't recognize me. But it wasn't just that I looked different, I felt different, and I acted different because I had a lot more calmness and self-assuredness, where before, it was like a deer in the headlights, like running from one emergency and one escape to another.
Yeah.
But as we go within and figure out how to feel right with ourselves, then we're in a better position to help others. It does seem like it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense. It works.
How do you fill up your cup? What makes Janie feel really good throughout the day?
So what really helps me is I spend a lot of time outside. So I guess, connecting with nature. And I just figured that out because I used to spend a lot of time in the yard. And that was, reflecting back, I realized that that was my way of coping. And it wasn't really that I had to get all that yard work done, although I have 5 acres, so there's quite a bit to do. But it's, I mean, I finally got smart and hired a gardener, but I do the other stuff, which is a lot. And I realized that being outside made me feel good. And it's being out in the sun and doing something and being active and taking care of something. So now when I feel myself not being out of sorts or upset or that kind of thing, not in the best mood, I just go and walk. I can go walk on my own property. It's about 1/3 of a mile to go around and just walk and maybe listen to an audiobook or something uplifting, or maybe just listen to music that's happy, and just walk and just being outside. And after a while, you just feel better. And then I can come in and feel like I can cope. But being outside is really important. Apparently, I didn't know this before, but apparently there's something to it, like grounding and being outside and connecting with nature that really helps us spiritually. So I think that must be what it is.
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because I actually, in the last, I would say like week and a half, with 2 other women, where it's really like from a stress management perspective, like you said, that coping aspect. We've been doing meditation and also some grounding work to really just kind of let down and reconnect with different sources. And, people believe in many different things. And I think that the thing that I believe in most is that being outside just, it does, I mean, it's a miracle drug. I think that instantly you can shift your mind, you can shift your breathing, and by doing so, you completely shift the chemistry of your body.
Right.
So any chance I try to get outside at least once a day, and, tell other women too, because there's so much power, and sometimes you can't even describe it. And I think that's what's really cool about it too, is some things don't need to be, fully put into like words to be
right. I look at things like, I don't need to know the scientific reasons. I mean, it's interesting and stuff, but all I want to know is, does it work? And if it works for me, that's proof enough. I don't need to go read a study that somebody else did. And even if you don't have time to go for a walk, I've had days where maybe take a break and just go sit outside for 5 or 10 minutes in the sun. Like, I call it getting recharged, just sit there and go, okay, get recharged. And it literally recharges you, and you can go back in and go at it again and try to get some of your work done or your chores done, but you're in a happier mood.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it really helps.
Now, was that a shift for you as well, over these last couple of years, is to be able to take that time to get outside?
Well, I used to spend a lot of time outside because I was doing the yard work, but I was probably just escaping, and that was my way to cope. And it would be on the weekends. I would spend 4 hours, maybe more, outside at a time. So, but once I got things under control, I would feel like, if I didn't have time to go for a walk, or like say I was already dressed for the day, but I wanted to feel better, I would just go sit outside for 5 or 10 minutes. And I found that really helpful because of the sun. And at least I didn't feel like I was being gypped, that I couldn't, I wasn't getting enough me time, because really it's like you're just getting recharged. It's like plugging in your phone and charging it up. But it was working for me. So that's a shift. And I'm more in tune with how I'm feeling now. So like if I feel out of sorts, then I know I've got to go do something like that before I can work, or I'm just not going to be productive. Like if I'm full of angst and worry and overwhelmment, and I try to do stuff on my computer will freeze up and do all sorts of weird things. And then if I go outside and play with my sheep, or talk to the chickens, or go for a walk, or do something like that, and come back later, then it's like a miracle. Then everything works right. I think it has to do with energy and that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't really care what it is. I just know what works and what doesn't work. And I mean, like I remember one time when we had the fire here, I had some friends staying with me that had to be relocated, and they invited some family members over, and they were going to have a little party. And you know, it was at my house, but I wasn't in charge, which is kind of the best way to have a party. So I was in the office working, and the people started showing up, and I thought, I just don't feel right. Like I feel like if I'm around people right now, I'm just not going to be in a very good mood. And so even though they were here and they were swimming in the backyard and stuff, I just went for a walk. I walked around the property once or twice, and then I went out and joined them. And boy, I was like a different person, because then I was ready to be around people. I was relaxed enough, and I wasn't, you know, you can kind of tell when you're overwhelmed, like you might be more snippy with people. So I try, if I can tell that I feel that way, I try to fix that before I go around them, because I don't want to spread negativity and be a jerk. I want to spread love and kindness and joy to others, so that they feel good when they're around me. And so I feel good.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. What do you feel like you do uncommonly well?
I think that surprised me, but I think I am a good author. I mean, I have 4 books now, and one was international bestseller, and one was just a bestseller in the US. And I have 2 more coming out within the next, by April, 2 more will be out. And I have at least 3 more that I've already written that I need to edit. And I've got ideas for plenty more after that. So I really like knocking the books out. And it's, you know, I'm working on getting rid of my real estate duties. I'm not an active broker, but I have other things that I'm still wrapping up. And I'm looking forward to getting that all wrapped up in the next couple of months, so that I don't have to worry about that. Because it's those types of duties are more brain, like business-like, and the writing, even though it's business-like and stuff, it's more creative. And so I really like being in that genre a lot better. And so I'm looking forward to just being able to write and edit and have a more peaceful life, and spending even more time outside. But I kind of surprised myself about the writing. And it's interesting, because when I was in high school, my English teacher told me that I should be an English teacher. And he said, when you I want you to go to college, and I want you to major in English. And that didn't work out very well because I couldn't get in the English. You had to select a major, and there was too many people in that. So that didn't work out, but I guess I'm coming around. It just taken me a long time.
Yeah.
50 years or something to get here. Well, it's been a journey, so it's okay.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like, I mean, you write from your own experiences too. And so, I mean, maybe you wouldn't have been as powerful a writer because you hadn't experienced the things.
I didn't have anything to write about. Right. That is true. That's true. Yeah, I think experience is the best teacher, but none of us are going to live long enough to experience everything. So it's important to learn from other people. And even if you read a whole book and you only learn one thing, if you could apply that one thing to your life, then that's one less mistake, or one less, easier route. And I think that's one thing that we're all here to teach each other, is what we've learned. Like, how to avoid this or that, or how you can do things better. And that's important to share. That's why it's so important to read or listen to podcasts or audiobooks, or go to speeches, or go to conferences, that kind of thing, where you get to learn about, how did other people get to where they are and what worked for them. Now, all the stuff won't resonate with you, but some of it will. And if you put it to use, then you can get on your journey that much faster.
Yeah, definitely. I'm thinking of another quote that comes to mind. I love quotes, but someone else has shared with me, Jana, if you've hit rock bottom, you can put the shovel down. And I thought,
don't keep digging. I love that.
Right. And I mean, I think that goes along with what you said, is there's so much information out there of people that have had their rock bottom and have been able to now share with us how they got there to that rock bottom, and also like how they really kind of pulled themselves back up and are living a much different life. And if we find ourselves at that that rock bottom moment, there's so many different resources to be able to really say, okay, I'm dropping the shovel and I'm going to start doing something different. So it's always so helpful to be able to learn, especially now. Like, I just feel like there's so much information out there to be consumed, but it could also lead to a little bit of overwhelm too, just to kind of say like, what's the first step for me with all this information that's out there.
Right, you kind of have to do triage, like like I unsubscribe to a lot of things because I just can't be bombarded with it. But if it's something that really speaks to me or something I'm trying to focus on at the time, then I'll spend the time to read it, because time is we only have so much time. So if we spend it all reading other people's stuff, at some point we have to get up and do it and see what works. And I think it's important to kind of explain one of the life lessons that I've noticed is about duality. So when you're rock bottom and things are not well, if you never, hitting rock bottom is truly a blessing, however it appears in anybody's life, because if we didn't hit rock bottom, we wouldn't know what it was like to be on the other side of it, like to be happy or joyous or living a better life. And because if we always had a perfect life, like we would expect it and we wouldn't know anything different. But knowing something that's not perfect and then knowing what it could be, it gives you it makes you grateful, and it makes you realize, that you can do it. Because if it's always perfect, it's not any big deal. It's kind of like, if you didn't happen to me, but if you grew up in a really, really wealthy family, like you wouldn't understand the value of hard work, because if you wanted money, you just got it and miraculously occurred. But you need those down moments so you can experience the duality, the difference between have and not having it.
So true. And I feel like that gratitude and also faith, like I just feel like it's very much so intertwined with hitting rock bottom and being like, wow, this was horrible.
Yeah.
And really being really able to tap into those things. Yeah.
And the faith that it's not always going to be like that, trusting that it's not always going to be like, that's one thing we should remind ourselves when we have a bad day. It's not always going to be like this. Like tomorrow will be better.
Yeah.
Or that kind of thing, where it's not going to last forever. Because so often, and that goes back to the negative self-talk, when we have a bad day and then we tell ourselves, oh, it's bad and this always happens and I don't know why I try and blah blah blah. Well, you're just going down that pit. You've picked up the shovel.
Yeah.
And you're digging again. Whereas if you tell yourself more positive things like, well, this too shall pass, I have faith in it, I'm smart, I can figure it out, there's a way, I just maybe don't know what it is right now, then you can get out of that hole.
Yeah. And I feel like that really allows us to step into this idea of creating solutions versus creating excuses.
Right.
Which is a huge difference, because when we're spiraling, oftentimes we think of all the reasons why it won't happen or shouldn't happen, versus if we're really able to step back, think of it big picture, take that deep breath, we start really creating solutions to the problem we have at hand.
Right. If you get out of that negative mindset, you can start thinking in a world of possibilities. Well, what if this and what if that? And some of the things might seem outlandish, but there's probably a way to get to even those outlandish ideas. If you just, you got to stay open-minded about it.
Yeah.
And ask that, like, I need somebody to help me, show me this, or I need to learn that. And then somehow the things start showing up in your world and you can get your things answered.
Yeah. Where do you feel like you still struggle today?
So it's funny you should ask that. So being in your line of work, I think I still struggle a little bit with weight. I got to goal weight, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago or something, and maintained it until sometime last year during COVID. And then it just kept getting a little bit further and a little bit further, and a couple more pounds and a couple more pounds. But I have to admit that I've come to terms with it. And I'm not going back to an extra large, but I have finally said, you know what, I don't want to spend that much focus on counting calories and logging in every bit of exercise, because you can manage it that way, but it's like, I don't want to live with that much focus on it. So I kind of let it go that I just, I don't need to fit in size 6 pants anymore. Like that was a big deal to me. But I was like, I look perfectly fine in an 8, and just like, just kind of change my goals and make it more about being fit and being healthy and being strong, because I have to be able to lift bags of chicken feed and dog food and hay and all these other things where I live, and I live alone. So I've got to keep strong so I can like get out of the bathtub or walk up and down the stairs, carry my groceries and stuff. So I focus more on that and not the part about like, am I going to be really skinny? And it's great to have a flat tummy. I mean, I really love that, but it's like, I want to look like a woman. So I don't even know how people do it, but I don't have the body. When I lose too much weight, I lose all the womanhood. And and I've just said, that's not so important. And I think I realized that, not at the time, but later, I realized like, well, do you want to be like this? When I was under goal weight, I was so thin, it makes you, at my age, it makes you be a lot more wrinkled, but I didn't look healthy. And I remember, this is kind of funny, but I remember I posted a picture on social media and I had to make my face fatter because I looked too skinny. And I thought, how do you do that? Well, I don't know. I don't even know if I could remember how to do it now, but I did that because I looked too thin. And I thought, well, just don't be thin. Like, so that's an easy fix.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes we get too obsessed with having a model type body or trying to strive like that. I don't think that's healthy. I think we need to learn to be more accepting of our bodies and strive for being healthy and strong and having some muscle mass and being able to live our best life, not look like well, you probably don't remember Twiggy, but she was like the toothpick. And we don't need to look like Twiggy. We need to look like a healthy woman.
Yeah, she actually set the standard for a lot of, what we perceive as a woman's body. I would say, especially like for women that grew up during the, 50s, 60s, 70s.
Right.
So that's still the context in which we go to that represents that idea of womanhood, actually.
Right. So I try to think of now like I think they're called Romanesque women. Like when you go to Europe and you go into the museums and they have women that are more voluptuous and they kind of have a little belly and that kind of stuff. Like that's what I'm going for now. It's not gonna have some unrealistic standard.
Yeah, keyword there, unrealistic. And I think like you highlighted, if I want to be healthy and be able to do all the things I want to do in my life and not be so micro focused on counting calories and having to measure food, not that that's bad, but I mean, if you're recognizing that that's not the definition of health that I want to live, then that's like a really different conversation.
Right. It's great for helping you reach your goals. I mean, because after you lose a certain amount of weight, the last 10 pounds are probably a lot harder, so you have to really focus, but it's not something I want to do the rest of my life. I mean, I'm going to have to learn other ways. The other thing I found out is that exercising more doesn't necessarily help, because when I was on the track team and we were getting ready to go to nationals, the coach told us, now ladies, don't get mad, you're not fat, but you need to lose some weight. And the other girl and I were like, what? And so we weighed ourselves and we were overweight. And we thought, well, how can this be? We're getting a lot of sleep. We're not drinking alcohol. We're doing all the track workouts. We're only eating healthy. We're not eating any crap. Well, we tracked our calories and we were just eating too much. It was healthy stuff, but we were eating too much. So it was really a struggle to get our weight down. And it was actually at one time I got a pulled muscle, and so I couldn't run at all for a few weeks. And I was worried, like, I don't want to limp out again, like this, like my biggest fear. So I watched my calories, and it was so much easier to maintain my weight by exercising less. Because when you exercise more, you get hungry.
Yeah.
really, really hungry. And so it has more to do with, I mean, movement and all that is wonderful because you want us to be fit, but it has more to do with what we eat and how much we eat. Because
Yeah.
if you pay attention to that, that's kind of the key to getting your weight down.
Yeah.
That's what I found. And I don't think I would have believed that if it didn't happen to me. I would have just thought, oh, I just need to go to the boot camp, 5 days a week instead of 3 days a week. And I need to be running 4 miles on the other days. But that's not really the key.
Well, and I think that loops into, how you started this conversation today of like, sometimes the power is in the being, not the doing.
Mm-hmm.
And, especially when it comes to exercise, so often we overtrain our bodies and that actually puts it into a stress response. And the body's like, no, thanks. I'm not going to give you what you want because you're not giving me what I want. And so I always say there's this there's this conversation at hand that's being played, and we have to understand what the body's trying to say to really give it exactly what it needs. And sometimes it needs more rest and not more exercise.
Right. Well, speaking of rest, that reminds me that your viewers will think this is interesting. When my former husband first left, I lost 10 pounds the first month. So I did not change what I ate, and I did not change how much I exercised. What I did was I got enough sleep. So I was probably only getting 6 hours of sleep and probably not very restful, but I got, at least 8 hours on a consistent basis. And not only did I feel better and I could think more clearly, my stress level went way down, but that was it. And to lose 10 pounds, that's it. So that's the easiest way in the world to lose weight, get more sleep.
Yeah.
If nothing else, you realize that if you go to bed earlier, you're not going to be snacking. But I think it helps your body and stuff. Like I wasn't necessarily staying up and snacking, but getting that rest, it's I don't know if it resets your metabolism or something, but it was the easiest 10 pounds I lost.
Yeah. Well, and it really, again, expanding it out, there's so many other, things that impact our health and our weight that are far outside of, just what's on our plate. There's so many other factors at play. Sleep is so powerful in so many different ways. So that's, wow, 10 pounds in 1 month. That's crazy. It's good.
Right. What else do you have for me?
So, okay. I have a few more questions as it relates to how do you celebrate your successes? So I've also found that it's really a powerful mindset shift to be able to celebrate the things that we do well. And I think this is in particular because we we have not ever really been taught how to care for ourselves. Again, particularly, in womanhood, it's kind of looked at as maybe you shouldn't talk about yourself or say that you do things well because it could be conceited, or there's just like a lot of different things in this realm. And so I really like to tap into that and say like what women do well, because I find that the default is for us to say everything that we don't do. Or so how do you define success for you? And what does that look like to celebrate you?
Well, I think the key is celebrate little stuff. Like you don't have to wait until you finish writing a book, it's published and it hits #1 before you go, I've accomplished something. No, I think it should be like, I had a good week, I made some good progress, I got this or that done. And really any little thing, and use that to celebrate. And I don't use food to celebrate. I think that's kind of self-defeating. I'm not saying that I don't eat cake or something like that sometimes, but I'm saying it's not like, well, if I do this or that this week, then I can go splurge and eat terrible on the weekend. Because I think that just gets you in a negative habit. I like to celebrate by doing something fun, like getting together with somebody or doing some activity that I like. It might include a meal, but it would be more like a healthy meal. Yeah. So I think we should celebrate little things and try to make every day or every week fun. And I totally agree with what you said about, as women, we are brought up to feel that we can't toot our own horn. Because I noticed that especially like from my mother seemed to be, the sense I could get was that you shouldn't be doing that. Like if I would have friends over and I'd be talking about something or other that I accomplished, and it was like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. And finally I just said, I'm not going to worry about what other people think. It's because I did do it, whatever it was. And my friends are, applauding me for it. And I'm not doing it to be conceited. I'm doing it to show them that they too can be proud of things they've done and that there's nothing wrong with it. It's kind of a paradigm or a shift that we need to make, and we need to help other women learn that it's okay. Maybe in the old days, women weren't supposed to say things about themselves and make it look like they're bragging, but I think that we all need that, and we should encourage other women and also point out to them when they've done something remarkable and commend them on it, instead of just expecting it and then expecting them to just be quiet about it. Like, it's a big deal.
Yeah. Well, and I love how you said, like, you are celebrating along the way. It's not until you have a #1 bestseller. It's, oh, I wrote chapter 1, I'm done.
Yes.
I wrote chapter 2, like, you're giving yourself that praise along the way to say, like, and I feel like that also keeps you going and keeps you consistent, because you're feeding, that positive aspect into your system.
Right. It serves as motivation to keep you going, because you're getting some kudos along the way. Kind of like if you were a child and you were trying to learn how to ride your two-wheeler with the training wheels off, and your parents are there saying, oh, come on, and and you might fall, but they'd go, oh, you made it 3 feet, and then the next time you make it 10 feet. It's kind of like that. And not everybody had that growing up, and so we have to learn how to do that for ourselves. Yeah. And I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it's good, and it keeps our motivation going, because that's one reason people don't reach their goals, is they make the goal is so huge and they feel like they can't celebrate till they get to the end, that it's not attainable. But if they make the goal smaller and keep telling themselves positive self-talk along the way, then it's not so bad. I mean, you think of somebody who wants to be in a marathon and they can't even walk out to their mailbox. They're going to have to start walking to the mailbox, and then they're going to have to start walking around the block, and then maybe jogging and walking, and then maybe jogging and just build on it. But if they berate themselves because they can't go out to the mailbox, well, they're never going to make it on a marathon, even if it's a walking marathon.
Yeah. And then they'll never even walk to the mailbox.
Right. Because it'll be totally deflated. And it's like, well, why try? Can't do it. So we need to learn how to be our own little cheerleaders. Yeah. And celebrating wins is a good way to do it.
Definitely. So that's why I like to ask my final question, because I love to, one, have people say what they are most proud of out loud, because I feel like sometimes we might say it internally, but to be able to share it is a whole other level, because I also want to just be able to support people in being proud of themselves. So one of the things that was shared with me is, especially in this idea of being selfish, the goal is to flip that and be self-full, so that you are pouring over and completely changing others around you. And so I feel like that is from, being proud of ourselves. So what is one thing that Janie is proud of herself for doing?
Well, the thing that I'm most proud of, and it's going to sound a little unusual, but I can't tell you how hard it was. It's to finally be able to say out loud to people I know that I am in fact a spirit medium. And what that means is that I am like a channel between spirits or beings at other levels or other dimensions. And I can talk to them just like I talk to regular people here. And it's, so I've been quite afraid to tell anyone, but I've honed that, and I, honestly, that would have never happened if I didn't go on my journey, hitting rock bottom and then doing all the quiet time and the self-reflection and asking for help. So I feel like that I have finally relaxed and become a channel, so this information can flow. And honestly, anybody can do it, but most people don't spend the amount of time that I've spent. So that's why they don't do it, or other people do it and they just don't talk about it. So along the way, being able to do that, I have been told, and I've transcribed an entire book, like word for word. And beings in another dimension, they're called Ascended Masters, have told me this book. And the book is all about why we are here and what we are to learn. And I have to tell you, when it first happened, I was like, what the heck? But the stuff they told me, I didn't know about any of it. I mean, the lessons I knew, but I didn't know the reasons why we're here and what happens and that kind of thing. So it was all new to me. So it was pretty outlandish, but I wrote it all down, and I have put it in a book, and the book will come out on Easter. And it's for those people who are looking for answers in life and want to know like why we're here and what we're supposed to do. And mostly if you want to know the 100 lessons that we're to learn, this is the book for you. And it's written at a very understandable level. I would say like maybe 5th grade. So it's not like when you read the Bible and you have to read it and then the preacher has to tell you what it means. Like it's like you'll be able to understand it, and you'll be able to relate it to your personal life and see how those lessons work in your life, and maybe be able to tell like when you didn't do it the way the lesson portrays and why it didn't turn out. But anyway, it's really going to be, I'm really excited about it. And I'm also I have that book coming out. It's called The New I Am Document Volume 1, because I've been told there's going to be 3 volumes during my lifetime. I'll have to write the other 2. And then I also just finished writing another book that a different publisher is going to publish. And it's about how I came from being a workaholic to being able to connect and get this information. And so it's kind of like a little summary of my spiritual journey. And that'll help people understand, because most people can't understand how you can just get a whole book downloaded. Like it just doesn't make sense. Yeah. But if you read the shorter book, it'll explain it. And then also I am going to be on an episode on Amazon Prime on a show called a series called The Awakening, The Awakened Entrepreneur. And it's episode 3. So right now they only have episode 1 out, but eventually they'll have 2, and then I'll be on 3, and it's about mediumship, where I talk about it. So if someone wants to find out more about this, they can go to the website that I have for this purpose, and it's www.thenewIammovement.com. And they can watch a video and learn more about how the movement came about. And then if before the book comes out, if people want to purchase videos of each lesson, they can do that. So that way they could start their journey of learning. And it fits for people who already have a religion, or it fits for people who don't have a religion, and it fits for people who aren't sure what they have, or maybe they're more spiritual. Right. Because it's the philosophy is that all religions lead us to the same place. And it's a place of love and understanding, and that we are all here to learn, how to get along, and to realize that we are all connected, and that we're actually all one being. That's why when one person does something, it affects someone else. And when you read these lessons, you'll understand how that works. And because at first it might seem kind of weird, like, because we all think of ourselves as separate, like we're our own little thing, but we're not. We're all really one, and everything we do and affects each other and the environment and the animals and so forth. So it's really a cool thing, and I'm looking forward to that new chapter in my journey.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I feel like that connects to the energy that you mentioned earlier of just how we connect on so many different levels. And some people are able to tell the energy of the room just by walking into it.
Right.
Yeah. So okay. So and then if they want to connect with you on Facebook or Instagram, what are your handles there?
Let's see. I have a fan page on Facebook, Janie J fan page. And then I have Janie Jerkovich on LinkedIn, Janie J author on Instagram.
Okay.
That's about it. And my Janie J website, if somebody's interested in those books, it's janiej.net. And there's courses in there and books and lots of blogs and helpful information. And then the website for the new I Am movement is we're putting more and more information in there all the time. And I invite people to go there and sign up so they'll know when the new books come out and they can be notified. They can.
Yeah, and I'll get this information and we can definitely put them in the show notes so that they have that as well to click on. Because it sounds like there's a lot of really good stuff coming out this year and also in years to come with two more versions as well. So that's exciting.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate the time to bring this information to people. I think most people just don't realize that what we are totally capable of. You know, we tend to think so small that there's like, it's limitless what we can achieve. And learning learning these lessons in the book that's coming out, that really helps. And if you're not ready for that, if you're not open to a spiritual life, you know, the Janie J stuff will definitely get you on the road to a better life. Because when you're worried about like making it day to day, it's hard to think about the meaning of life and that kind of thing. You know, when you're struggling about it, well, how do I get through my day without breaking down? So the Janie J books will help someone, you know, if that's where they are in their own personal journey.
Yeah, definitely. When you're in survival, it's very hard to think, you know, big picture. And so step by step, you know, every day committing to those, you know, promises that you have to yourself until you can get to another level.
Right. Well, I think that what happens is we just basically keep evolving and reinventing ourselves. And so we keep, like, I think of it as spiraling up instead of spiraling down. And spiraling up, and we get to a new, where we're in a new state of being where, you know, like maybe we're happy instead of being broke and unhappy and uncertain. And then we get there and then we go a little bit higher and then we get to where we want to help other people. And then we just keep going and going. So that's actually what humanity is supposed to do. And it's the reason it takes eons and eons.
Yeah.
So we're kind of slow. And you know, it's our job to help other people so we can all advance and teach each other. So it's good what you're doing. You're helping to spread love and light too. So I encourage everyone to do that.
Yeah, we're all trying. Well, we're trying, that's for sure. Well, Janie, it was such a pleasure to have you on today. I feel like, you know, I have so many more questions just based on what you shared. So I would definitely love to have you on again and maybe share a little bit more, you know, in depth of some lessons or just, you know, some more, really just life lessons and to continue to share with other people. But thank you so much for taking some time and sharing just a little bit about your story and being willing to serve more today. So thank you.
Thank you, Jana. It's been great.